Welcome back to another episode of War in Cali. In this episode, I will detail the story of Inglewood neighborhood Piru member, Big Tako. Tako was born Juan Martinez and was originally born in El Salvador. Him and several siblings and their mother would later leave El Salvador and set their sights on America for their American dream that many immigrants always wanted, which was a better chance to succeed in giving their children everything they couldn't give them in their original countries. This was the 80s. The world, and Los Angeles was a different place at this time. El Salvador had its fair share of crazy things going on at the time, making it one of the most dangerous countries. But America in the 80s had its fair share of problems of its own. You had the influx of guns and drugs, with the newly drugged crack putting the streets in a chokehold. Many young kids became dealers, and many elders became users. In the era of the 80s was followed with gang and turf wars, some battling over the drug trade, but many battling over gang affiliations. With the influence of gang culture in Los Angeles, many of the youth started joining gangs at an early age, most before even graduating elementary school. So violence and chaos was seen and brought early in most Los Angeles kids' lives. If they didn't take part in gangs, they had friends or family members a part of gangs. Tako's family was settled in Inglewood, on a street called Beach Street. Beach Street is located in a gang called the Neighborhood Piru's territory. By the time Tako settled in the area, the Neighborhood Pirus were an active gang, building their name in the streets, like most gangs participating in violence from fights, murders, robberies, and selling drugs was a common thing in the area. Beach Street, the street Tako lived on, is one of the most active streets in the Neighborhood Piru's turf, also known as NHP. Rogers Park, one of the hangouts for the gang, is located on Beach Street, so you can see several members in the area, especially during the 80s and 90s, which many people call the prime of gangbanging. The NHPs have multiple cliques under the gang's umbrella, like the 500, 700, and 800 block. Growing up in this area was active. The NHPs went to war with SA gangs and several Crip gangs like the Legend Crips and several neighborhood Crip gangs like the Rolling 60s. Being in this type of environment was easy to be influenced, and Tako eventually joined the Neighborhood Pirus. Originally coming up, Tako was one of the first non-black members in a black gang in Inglewood, but he wasn't the first Tako. Another NHP member of Hispanic descent had the name first, but the original Tako stopped claiming NHP, and Juan became the new Big Tako. And by many accounts, it's said he made that name legendary. By the mid-80s, Tako was building his name in the streets, known for being aggressive and with all the bullshit. Being a non-black member in his game made him go extra hard. He wanted to prove himself and show he was just as tough as anyone else, or even tougher. Tako became a feared individual, a face you would see and knew it came with trouble. He ran with the likes of a big name in Inglewood from the same gang as him, who many people still call today Mr. Inglewood, being Big Dulo. Dulo and Tako became running mates, and terrorizing Inglewood and their rivals is what they became known for. I covered Dulo in a previous episode. His name runs so much in Inglewood, in his hood even at a young age he was viewed as a leader. He was also known as a person who was always on go. And Tako had the same respect and the same image in the streets, and their respect wasn't given, it was taken. They would do whatever to get their names known, and respect in the streets from going to rival schools just to fight enemies to get their name and hood out there, to shooting and being a part of several altercations.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, with the legendary homeboy Tako, homie, yeah, he held this ground in his turf, homie, and he had to carry the torch because, like I said, back in the days, the turf wasn't that deep. So if you had homeboys like Big Dulo, uh, Big G Slim, them, these dudes would probably be on county lids and locked up or some going to the pens or something. And Tako had to hold it down, you know, out the YGGs or some shit, you know what I'm saying? Hold it down and lace us and inform us and shit, because you got to remember he kind of came in like in the early 80s on this shit, like, you know, in the 80s, you know, like
OG Rolling 60 Crip Cav Mac, from his own account on his channel, will have a run-in with both Tako and Dulo in 1991 at Fox Hill Mall, which a gun will be drawn on him and his crew from the NHP side that Tako and Dulo was with. And this altercation at the mall will later lead to a shootout at a gas station with the 60s and the NHPs. And from Cav Mac word, Tako was one of the NHPs in the front line firing back at the 60s. And that wouldn't be the only shooting and violence Tako would be a part of. He would have countless of violent altercations in his lifetime and plenty of escapes with death. Tako would have multiple kids in the 90s, and most notable, his oldest son being Juan Martinez Jr., who many people call Midget, but now he's known as the rapper Rucci. Tako's lifestyle wouldn't change. Even though he became a father, he was still fully locked into the streets. He was a well-respected member in his community and his gang. He looked out for many of his homies. He had rank and leadership qualities that most don't. He loved embracing his young homies, putting them on game, taking them under his wing, and providing shelter. He always tried his best to set them up the best way he could in the streets as an older homie. But being in the streets had many people wanting to kill Tako. Tako's sisters had been shot just trying to get to him. And also multiple places he lived with his kids and his girlfriend were shot up. But for Tako, things will only get worse by 2010. On April 25th, 2010, about 6 a.m., a man named George was walking in Inglewood when he saw a red Explorer and a white Camry driving towards him. The two cars passed him, then suddenly turned around and stopped. Someone in the Explorer said something about Mexicans, then the front passenger side window lowered and fired a black gun. George threw himself on the ground. When he looked up, the shooter fired again. George stood up and then ran through a nearby alley. The shooter fired 4 more shots, and George hid in the alley until police came. Inglewood PD had a radio call about the shooting, and also the red Explorer. Inglewood PD knew that the NHP members drove a red Explorer. The police went to North Victor Avenue, where police knew Tako and his brother Boner lived. They saw the Explorer and also the Camry, which was mentioned in the radio call. Police examined the Explorer and saw a bullet casing in the roof of the Explorer. Police later took George to Hill and Victor Street, where he saw the Explorer and the Camry. At the time, he identified the driver of the Explorer and also Anthony, aka Boner, as the shooter. A search of Boner's residence uncovered 4 handguns, a shotgun, and several bullets. A DNA sample for one of the guns matched Boner. DNA and the gunshot residue was found on him. This led to Boner and Tako both being arrested. George did not testify at trial. He was deported to Mexico on July 23, 2010. Police contacted him in January 2011, and George said he wanted to come back and testify, but was afraid for his life. At trial, Tako and Boner's mother testified on the behalf of Boner. She testified that she asked Boner to drive her to work around 6 a.m. or 6:30 that morning of the shooting. He agreed to take her when she was ready. Then at some point in that morning, she saw police all around her residence. On cross-examination, she acknowledged that Boner told her he did not have a valid driver license and that she decided to take the bus to work that day. Boner then testified in his own behalf. He stated that he spent the night at his mother's house working on his music, which at the time, he was working on a rap career. He said he fell asleep around 2 a.m. He said he woke up around 6 a.m. when his mother came in and asked him to take her to work. Boner said as soon as he was getting ready, his brother and some of his friends came in the house with weapons and left the weapons on the table. Boner stated that he grabbed the weapons and told them to get the weapons out of there and leave. Boner denied knowing that the guns were in the studio, where police had found them. He believed that his brother's friends put them there, and Boner further denied being at the location of the shooting. He denied leaving the studio that morning. But none of this will hold up in court. Instead of fighting the case, Tako took a deal, which was 5 years. But Boner fought the case, and he received 35 years to life for the shooting. He's currently still behind bars, and it's been 15 years since the shooting. When the shooting happened, Rucci was only around 15 years old. His 2 father figures, his uncle and his dad going to prison, left him and his little brother alone with no guidance. With the feeling that he needed to make something happen, Rucci dropped out of school and he jumped into the streets, which he was already tied to just off his dad's affiliation, making him already an NHP member, along with his brother. But he also embarked on the path his uncle was following, and that's rapping. Rucci by 18 began working and developing his sound, and by 2016 he began to stake his claim in LA's rap scene, over the years gaining millions of views and launching himself as one of the biggest rappers from neighborhood Piru, with the likes of Squeak Roo, 211, and other rappers coming from his area, but not just his hood and in Inglewood. He began to be a frontrunner in Los Angeles of the new generations of rappers. But just like his father, his street ties have put him in issues. Rucci being from Inglewood and also neighborhood Piru makes him rivals to the neighborhood Crip gangs and also their affiliates, and some robberies will hit the internet. We all know by now the Inglewood Pirus and Blood's dislike for the neighborhood Crips and vice versa. But the events that led to an Inglewood Blood named Red Bull being murdered furthered the conflict. Rapper Draco the Ruler and Rucci were once cool at a point, even recording several songs together with them both being on the rise around the same time. But with Red Bull's death coming at the hands of Draco's entourage, which were neighborhood Crips, this led to Draco's Stink Team having beef with Inglewood as a whole, from the streets to jail. One of the shooters in the case was Kales from the Rolling Honey Crips, who I covered before in a previous episode. Draco went to jail as a part of the Red Bull murder, as they tried to take the whole Stink Team down. After his release from jail, both Draco and Rucci had a back and forth.
None of that. Ain't no nigga more hot than me. That's what it's about, though. Nigga got the city. Niggas mad about the Drake shit. Bitch, nigga, you know why he picked these niggas. Influence. Ain't no nigga got more influence than me. Hey, you niggas mad I got the city, so y'all wanna do the whole shit.
You don't like that we hot?
Yeah.
You just doing that because you fuck with them. Nah, it's the homie being loyal, bro.
Right.
You feel me? But nah, we just not fucking with nothing over there. We doing our own thing, and it's like we not paying attention to none of them niggas, but they keep hating and keep saying something about us. So it's like we gotta give them a little attention. But other than that, nah.
But this beef ended with Draco dying.
And Rolling Stone are now reporting rapper Draco the Ruler was the victim in last night's scuffle behind the stage at the Once Upon a Time in LA Music Festival. Eyewitness News reporter Leticia Juarez live outside Bank of California Stadium where it all happened. Leticia, what's the latest?
Well, good morning to you, John. Yeah, we're outside the Exposition Park where that stabbing took place. We're still waiting to hear from officials to give us the official word on the victim's identity. But as you mentioned, the LA Times reporting that 28-year-old Draco the Ruler was the victim of that fatal stabbing.
That was, once my friend, you know what I'm saying? So when it happened, it's like, I wouldn't say I was really hurt, but it did slap me in the face on some this shit could be taken away from you fast as a motherfucker. You know? One day we seen him shining, next day we seen him dying. It was just that's not a good feeling.
Tako's life only got more complicated after his 5 years in prison. When he first got out of prison, he got a job and tried to start his life back on a productive path. But randomly ICE came and took him. He believed it was a parole violation. To his surprise, he was being deported. Being placed back in El Salvador, where he hasn't been since a kid, was a crazy experience. He was jumped by multiple men and had to face the reality he will probably never see his family again. After 35 days, Tako escaped El Salvador. He had to cross Guatemala and Honduras on a raft that he took. This led to him having to go through a river and run for several miles and hide for a long period of time. This also led to him being in Mexico, where he eventually settled. Going to Mexico gave him a chance to see his family and to be closer, which eventually got him the chance to see them, which Rucci would document in a short film called Tako's Son, detailing both of their lives, their gang ties, and the current situation they were in. Rucci is currently still living his rap dream, and Tako is currently in Tijuana trying to live the best life that he could. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.